again. Feeling love, my love. Hello, dear viewers, and welcome to day 2 of our observation effort of the 47th presidential U.S. elections. Yesterday, we were able to look at what was going on the polls from. Is he saying something? Yesterday, we were able to look at what was going on in the polls from Washington, D.C. to Maryland to Texas, you name it. We saw what the voters were saying. We saw what was going on as our observers were on ground, and we had conversations around it as well. Today, the results are coming in their numbers, even faster than we expected, to be honest. But we are, we know the winner. I guess we almost know the winner right now. But the results have not been officially announced, but they are projections, and we are quite aligned with that. Anyways, I'm here in the Ready to Talk TV and podcast studio with none other than Mr. Elijah Affi. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being here and having conversations with us around the U.S. elections. I mean, some people are asking, why are we observing elections in the U.S. as ready to lead Africa? But we say we are leading Africa, and when you're leading a place or a people, you have to take learnings from diverse point of views just so that you can amplify your efforts locally, right? And that is why we're observing the elections in the U.S. Yes. So what has been your observation? Let's even start from pre-election. What do you think about how the debates went, how the conversation went, the policies that both parties were, pushing for? Yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much for having me here. Thank you so much. I think with this election, one of the things that we've seen, if we go back, even first of all, to the fact that this is an election between a former president and a sitting president initially, then it eventually evolved to become an election between a former president and a sitting vice president. So it was unprecedented, first of all, because you have two names on the ballot. Horses were changed midstream, and then all of a sudden, we now had Kamala Harris facing the Trump. So there were initial shakings, right? And even coming to claiming the ticket, it was an unprecedented one for Donald Trump, really, yes, because he was coming in to reclaim victory. And it was an uphill task for him because he first of all had to show that he still had the popularity required for him to have the ticket in his party, then go forward to get that mandate from his party. Right. So it was actually a lot of work on his part to show that he still had that popularity to also go back to the party and get that mandate, considering that also key influencers within the party were not necessarily happy with him. So he coming up through that rank and trying to prove himself to get back the ticket was actually a lot of fights.
Yes.
Then he now came, got the mandate, and began the fight against Biden for the ticket, right? So people were really surprised that, okay, this guy was able to get this mandate, and then he now had a court battle. Oh my, that was like another journey totally, because then he had so many cases, over about 200 cases actually filed against him. Eventually it came down to 30 something.
Yes.
And he was convicted of some in some states, somewhere on the federal level that are still yet to be heard. So there are lots of things, and this was like a first time in history, because it's almost like every hurdle he passed, a new hurdle showed up. Every hurdle he passed, a new hurdle showed up. But I think he proved himself to be a very good fighter, to fight through
all of the hurdles.
All of the hurdles that were placed before him.
Yeah.
And then coming to win, to get the ballot. While, I mean, you could imagine what it meant in his mind to be having court cases here, to be having issues around, even allegations around his family also, to be having also a political battles.
Yes.
And then you're still trying to run an election, Then the Biden on the other side, I mean, he had his health issues, that people were talking about, that, oh, he wasn't fit to run. And then all of a sudden, because his ticket was easier because he was a sitting president. Yeah. So he got that ticket, that mandate easily, and then just took it up and was running. Yeah. But eventually, pressure was placed on him.
A lot of pressure.
A lot of pressure was placed on him.
Oh my God.
Then Kamala took over, because then again, the Democrats couldn't afford to do another Congress to try and look for a new candidate. So they picked Kamala. And having Kamala come on board, this was like an unprecedented one all of a sudden, because now Trump had notes that were prepared. His entire campaign were geared towards Biden.
Biden.
Then it was like a wild card. Kamala came in and with a wild card, so you could see that he was also struggled
Yes.
at the initial phases because he was like, okay, how do I attack this woman? Someone said it was a battle between a prosecutor and a convict. Because during the debates,
Yes.
like you alluded to, she was really in control. He could hear her say, "Oh, I'm not done talking.
Yes.
I'm speaking, please." And she was really in control. But eventually, I think this is like a very, very historical election. The candidates we are all like firsts of its kind. A lot of it were firsts of its kind. Having a former president come back. This is the second time
Yes.
in the entire history. The last one was in the 18s.
Yeah.
Not even in this century, right? So that tells us a whole lot that Trump has been able to. As a matter of fact, they even said he's the oldest that has actually won the election, right? Or that has even put for this kind of the highest office in the land. So it's quite exciting with what we've seen so far. And I think, like you alluded to, in Africa, for us, it's something to pay attention to because, you can't ignore America. America is the seat of the world. Everyone has a representation in America. So whatever happens to America, when America coughs, everyone catches cold.
Yes.
So
we all feel it.
We all feel it. So you can't ignore America, and that's why we're actually here today.
I agree. Absolutely agree with you. The changing tides was just something we didn't see coming, right? I genuinely thought that Joe was going to carry it on until the end, but the pressure was a lot, and it was a good decision that they made. The Democrats ensured that he was replaced by Kamala Harris. People are saying Donald Trump has ensured that a woman does not become the president of the United States for the second time. The results are not yet out, right? But we're seeing the trends. What do you have to say about that? You think America is actually ready for female leadership?
Yeah. So I think America has a lot to learn from the world when it comes to female leadership because Britain has done it.
Yes.
What Liberia has done it. What's their name? Is it Botswana?
They've done it as well.
So I've forgotten the name of the other African country, but they've also done it. And then we've seen other nations actually do it, right? So it's not the first time. Germany. You have world leaders who are female. So I don't think. I think it's just unfortunate that so far they've not been able to produce their first female presidents, right? To pin it on Trump, I don't think it's fair. But I think Trump is not that person who would let's really say he was trying to push down a woman. I think he was just trying to contest for office, and that's who he met. On the field. Even the second time he was trying to contest against Biden.
Yeah, and then he met Kamala.
Kamala, right? So I would have thought that would have caused more female voters to vote against him. But unfortunately, that was not also reflected in the voting patterns, right? So, but also looking at what Trump has been able to garner. You said they've not officially declared it, but he has gotten to over 270 as at the time we got into the studio.
Yeah.
He has gotten over 270 in the electoral vote, and she's still at 234.
Yeah.
So most likely it's already a victory. He has already even given a victory speech.
Yeah,
so
he has.
he already given a victory speech. He called in his team. But you see, this election showed us that the issues that were brought to the table were majorly the issues that pertain to Americans. They were not thinking about what Kamala and the entire Democrat Party were looking for. I think what they brought to the table, what Trump brought to the table, was talking about stuff that really pertained to the common man. The issue of the economy. And I think that's where the conversation was won, really, around the economy, because Trump spoke about the fact that the previous economy that was performing well was under his government. Now, interestingly, Barack Obama actually came up and challenged Trump on that. He said that economy is taking glory for is my economy that I handed to him. So it was an interesting thing, but I don't think the Democrats flogged that enough so that they would have really milked a lot from that, saying that, you are trying to steal under man's thing, but they really didn't speak to that, which was an opportunity that I think they missed.
Well, maybe data wasn't going to support their claim,
Yeah, maybe, right? But then again, the way this politics works is that sometimes it's all about narrative. It's all about saying, we did it, But unfortunately, because Kamala was already in this administration, a lot of things going bad.
Mm.
It's also a thing of memory, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the citizen will typically not remember so much of Trump than remember
That's true.
what they are currently experiencing
That's
under
true.
Biden.
Yeah.
Some people say that the lot of people voted for the stimulus checks that Donald Trump gave, the $1,200 or $1,500 that they received, right? About
Yes.
how many years ago? 4 years or 5 years ago, right? No, 4 years ago during 2020 lockdown, right? So, but I mean, I think it's quite an exciting one because what Trump has been able to do and what Kamala too has been able to do is to show that the issues that truly matter are at the center of it. Then, I mean, obviously, there are other issues that came up. You had the issues of same-sex relationships.
Yeah.
You had the issues of
Abortion, which was huge.
which was huge. Roe
Yeah.
versus Wade. You had the issues around immigration, right? So those issues were issues that came up that people cared about a lot, right? And then if you look at the fact that even in Hollywood typically tilted towards Kamala, right?
Yeah.
Because they felt like she brought in more freedom, more acceptance for all. You know, while you had someone like an Elon Musk pushing with Donald Trump to
Yeah.
ensure. I mean, this Elon Musk that previously hated Trump and was saying Trump should just back out. You know, but eventually they formed an alliance. They will say, you know what, I think we can work together. Let's see how we can work together to achieve our objective, right? So it's really quite exciting the dynamics of this election. You know,
Yes.
I think I paid a keen eye to each of the candidates, and I must say that this election is one that should be studied. Yeah, it's one that should be studied because it has shown us that against the grain, against the Hollywood support, that you could still push. The American people actually were listening to see who actually spoke about things that matter to them. And from what I'm seeing, he's leading in the popular votes, and he's also leading the electoral college. Typically, I would have said maybe Kamala should get the popular votes while he wins the electoral college. But unfortunately, or the other way, maybe he gets popular vote and she wins the electoral college, right? But unfortunately, this has just shown that America has unanimously decided. I mean, I was listening to the BBC and they were saying that he got a comprehensive victory. So I think what they were trying to speak about was the fact that the electoral vote and the
popular vote as well.
Vote, yeah. So it's quite interesting. It's quite interesting, I must say.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. Now let's look at the policies that each of these candidates brought forward, and even then relate it back to our context in Africa, how it could have affected, you know, for each of them, whichever of them would have gotten the presidential seat. So, first of all, Donald Trump. What were some of his policies that you found particularly interesting?
So, Donald Trump came with a simple message. He said, "Make America great again," right? And during his speech that he made earlier today, before they even called the election, he said, number one is we are a common sense party. And what we want is security. We want strong economy. We want a safe environment. He mentioned all those key components, you know, and making America great. And then he said, we'll make America first, right? America first. And what he meant, he said America first, and then he went on to say, and then after that, we'll think about other nations. And I understood where he was coming from, because what he was trying to say was, we can't be sending our boys in front of enemies' fronts and killing them, and then we are spending so much supporting the war. We are spending so much trying to make life better for other people. We are signing energy law, renewable energy accords, when we are the largest deposits of oil and gas in the world. We have also lots of businesses and industries that are yet to be able to compete globally against China and Russia. So there are lots of places around trade, around immigration. So, for example, immigration was one issue, right? He was of the objective where that he says, you know what, yes, you can come in, but you need to come in the right way. Right? Not that you come in through one back door and find another door and then you go in. No, but he said, no, you need to come in the right way, which is an interesting one because, I mean, with the brain drain that we have in Africa, a lot of people actually, I mean, US is like a dream destination where everyone wants to go to the US. and everyone wants to go, and it's the pinnacle of society. Like everyone looks to it. It's the light that currently shines in all the world. Because I told someone once in the U.S. The person asked me, this was my first time being in the U.S. Well, being in that state, and the person asked me that, "This is your first time in this state? This is your first time in the U.S. at this particular time? What what do you think? Do you feel anything?" I said, to be sincere, I just feel like I've always been here. And he was like, "What?" I said, "Because America," I told him, I said, "Because I've watched all your movies, I've watched all your films, you have a lot of soft power. And what that soft power has done is that it has made everyone around the world aspire to be
To
like
be
you."
there.
So America is that aspirational country that
That's
everyone
true.
wants to become like, right? So whatever happens in America is affecting the entire world, right? So now immigration is going to drive higher because obviously it's the biggest market in the world, right? People want to go to the biggest market in the world, where if you start a small business just selling earrings, you could typically become a billionaire just by doing that. They have a very active stock market or capital market,
That's true.
So America is that ideal destination, and what they now have for them is that soft power that they use to govern the entire world, even with the currency being central, right? That economic power. So it's quite interesting that people in Africa will be concerned, because you were hoping that maybe even for healthcare you might go there, even for education you
You might.
typically will go
That's
there.
true.
So the world goes there a lot. So the immigration laws will affect us. Also, when you talk about the energy, renewable energy of the world, because
Yes.
America is one of like the biggest purchasers of oil from other parts of the world. So giving other parts of the world trade. So what that means is that if they are giving other parts of the world trade and they start drilling themselves, they would reduce the amount they are buying from other parts of the world,
That's true.
right? Now, the argument that they have on the American side is that they are saying there's a lot of trade surplus, and typically what that means is you have typically the way typically most international trade works is that, you know what, you're going to buy from me. Let's say both of us are into, let's say you're into health insurance and I'm
Okay.
into capital markets.
Yes.
You will tell me, Elijah, send me referrals that are that from your clients, and I will send you referrals from
My own clients.
from your own clients too,
Yeah.
that will buy your health insurance, and then that will buy my own maybe car insurance or whatever we choose to I choose to sell. And then let's imagine through 1 year, I send you like 100 health insurance people, but you send me like two
Whoa. Car insurance
car insurance
people.
clients,
Yeah.
right? So then we'll go in the next year, I send you like another 50, you send me like 10. And so what now happens is that you see those things that you are not matching up to are becoming like your trade surplus, right?
Yes.
And then in form of like in terms of trade deficit for me, because then you're not feeding me the same way I'm feeding you. So that's how America currently feels. It's more like we are buying so much from you, but you are not also buying so much from us,
Yeah.
right? So to China, to the likes of China, to the likes of Germany, to the likes of the world. So there are lots of trade deficits that exist. And America is saying that, you know what, in fact, why are we even buying this thing much from all of you guys? When
we
you're
can
also
make
not
it.
even giving back to us. Let's make it. So, and this will force other countries to take ownership of their economy.
Yeah.
And say, okay, you know what? I will actually invest in my own economy to make sure that my economy has enough to give to the world. And so, I mean, to wake us all up. To wake us all up. So but the energy is something very sensitive, because the world has been driven by energy, right? Global wars and crises have been driven by energy, be it directly, which is when we talk in terms of fossil fuels,
Yes.
or indirectly in terms of even lithium, and various earth metals that are in the ground that could be used to power up plants
So many
and power up industry. So it's very, very interesting. And then you also have his focus around making it made in America, more products made in America, driving plants to come set up in America. So he's trying to push towards that. That's why he wants to reduce taxes and bring down and increase tariffs for people to bring in products, because it's an active market.
Yeah.
The moment you can sell to America, one of the things that Send to America does for you, especially if you are like in the technological or hardware space, is that the moment you sell there, it's automatically, because of the shared economics of scale, what it automatically does is that it causes your entire product to be able to become cheaper for the rest of the world. So if you start selling somewhere like in Africa alone, you will not be able to get that much penetration that will make it cheaper for the rest of the world. So you want to sell to America and then sell to the rest of the world. So America is a market that cannot be ignored. So Trump is trying to take advantage of that to see how he can get more money and get more jobs and get more done in America.
In America. And then what about some Kamala policies that you feel really made people tilt towards her, you know?
Kamala. Okay, so I tried to be very balanced. Unfortunately, Kamala did not communicate her policies as much. And I will explain. You typically had her trying to be liked than trying to actually speak only on her policies. So that's why a lot of people have struggled, right? But I will explain to you some things that were actually very positive about her. So I mean, she wasn't. I don't think there was any candidate that was all bad.
Yes.
You know, be it Trump. I mean, I have my reservations against Trump too. I have my reservations against Kamala. Now, the first thing was that she felt, regarding immigration, she felt we should have been a bit lenient. Right? She wanted a scenario where, you know what? Yes, you got in wrongly, but you're also a person. Let us find a way to make it work.
Now that you're here.
Now that you're here, right? But on the other side, they're like, you know what, get out of here. You understand? They want to deport people, you know. And the strength of America is the strength of its migrants. Like, America is driven by the migrants, the people that live there who came from other places. People even say America is not a state of its own because it was first of all even invaded, you know, and everything. But let's even leave that, right? Then you talk about issues around energy. She was more aligned towards the global play towards renewables, right? Which is actually a very positive thing because I mean, look at global warming, you know, and then you have the issues around the Paris Accord that was had regarding renewable energy, the world shifting towards renewable energy, which America was a part of, but Trump came and, you know,
yanked them up.
You know, so it's quite interesting, but she was for it.
Yes.
And I think it was a good thing, right, in terms of helping them be the global leader, right? However, I don't think she communicated enough because, and even when she did, that's not what the average American is thinking about. It's still too high level because at the end of the day, elections are won at the grassroots, right? So you typically want to still speak about things that the man will understand in terms of what's the price of this cup, how can I ensure that this cup is taken in to be cheaper rather than it getting more expensive, you know. Now, she also was, I mean, she also spoke about taxes. I mean, they didn't want to reduce taxes because, I mean, that's typically a democratic stance. They feel like the people should be taxed more so that the wealth could be distributed, you know. But on the Republican stance, they believe more in capitalism. They believe that she should lower taxes so they can incentivize people to come to work or to companies to come and set up plants, you know. So, so what you now have is a government that wants to ensure that everyone is paying their fair share of taxes, which is something they came against Trump at. That Trump did not even pay his taxes. You know, he evaded taxes and all sorts of accusations against him, right? So it's quite an interesting divide because she's thinking also. I mean, let's even talk about abortion and Roe versus Wade and everything. She was more pro-choice, right?
Yes.
Like in terms of let's see how we can let people make their choices. You know, and I think that's an area that even Trump shifted on. You know, and he tried to also encourage such that on certain counts, right, incest and the rest. But she was more like, see, it's people's bodies. Let them do with what they want, which is what a lot of people are looking for in the U.S. and which is what a lot of people wanted. You know, which is why I think a lot of people felt like America is built on freedom. You can't come and say we don't have freedom. The moment there's no freedom,
it's no longer America.
It's no longer America. You know, so she was also pushing towards that freedom, you know, that freedom of expression, freedom of being you, freedom of expressing yourself the way you want to express. And that was really, really a positive for her because you do not want to come to the place where they force on you certain things, you know, and that's not the mark of what America truly is.
Yes.
You know, so it's quite interesting the kind of policies that she was interested in, you know, but I think she didn't just communicate them as strong as she
She
should have,
should have.
right? I think she didn't just communicate them as strong as she should have.
Mm.
And maybe the disadvantage was because she was already in power and it was hard for her to necessarily campaign and throw her boss under the bus.
Mm.
She can't throw her boss under
That's
the
true.
bus.
She can
You
only
know,
speak to
she can only speak to,
continuing,
yes,
the
continuing on that.
existing
So
legacy.
she couldn't have come and say, "Oh no, I would have done this to look like she's throwing her boss under the bus." So it was a very hard place for her to be.
I agree with that. And also considering the fact that she really wasn't even coming out for presidency until just a few months before now. So a lot of her policies were not firmed up, yet until she had to come out for that. Now, looking at how the election and the state of governance and democracy is in the US, we can literally feel the different ideologies driving the both, major political parties. But when we come down to Nigeria, we really can't confidently speak to ideologies guiding, for example, APC or PDP. You can't say, okay, this is what an APC government will ideally do or what the PDP government will ideally do. I mean, this is my perspective. What do you think about that? And why do you think it is the way it is for our context here in Nigeria?
Actually, that's a very good question. Now, the thing is, I won't tell you why because I don't know. I think there are many factors that have contributed to it, but I'll bring my hypothesis, right? Now, typically, what has happened is that we have taken a system of governance that is based around more of, we've emphasized certain things, which is more of around tribe, religion, representation. So those are the things we speak about. But we've not really taken the conversation deeper. And the reason is because democracy was not necessarily our own design. It's something that we borrowed.
That's true.
From the other climes. It's kind of like if you check the system itself, you see that we have a little mixture of the British and a little mixture of the US system, right? Which is very funny because you're like, okay, you have a parliament and then you have a presidential system. There was a time we even had a prime minister in this country, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So we didn't really mature into it. So there was no form of ideology of saying that this is what we stand for, this is what we believe in, we are the conservative right, this is what we believe. And then, because the average man now is just thinking of what they will eat, what they will drink, hunger, So I think we're at a different space in our growth. That has not allowed us to shalaye, like the hungry man
Right.
would think
Yes.
it is. Because you're telling them, oh, we believe in this. What do you mean by you believe in this? But also, I want to also say that because we cannot necessarily categorically say APC is this, PDP is this.
Yes.
I think inherently in them, there are also principles. If we look deeper, we'll see that there are certain principles that they each stand for. So, for example, if you look at the APC-led government, you would see that they are typically people that would increase the taxes on people, and we have typically seen it, right? They would typically push on a lot of tax engagement channels, right? The PDP is more around a bit more liberal, they're a bit more democratic, So it's very interesting that even though we say we don't have an ideology, we find out that two parties actually operate in a certain system of thinking, because every human being has a way they think, right? So that is an idea. But just that, unfortunately, we don't have people who are necessarily loyal to any ideology. I think that's where the challenge is, because we don't have deep convictions that are driving around the state of nation building. Because when it comes to state crafting, there must be an ideology that you believe in. And what that is that ideology that creates different camps. Is what makes us say, I believe in this is how we'll change this country, and I believe in this is how we'll change this country, and we'll build on that, right? And we even had interesting ideologies, to be sincere. If you check out the history of Awolowo, Awolowo had some ideologies, which are some of the ideologies that the current president is actually running with.
Yes, that's true.
It was an ideology that had a certain, his own was Southwest focus. Like, he wanted to develop Southwest, so it was an ideology. This is what the dream will look like. This is what we can make our nation. This is what can make our... So everyone had an ideology, but over time, I think the interest and the shifting systems has made us look like we do not have at all, and just that when it becomes so politics that is so incentive-centered,
yes,
everything, and the incentive now, this time around, is not based on ideology now, it's based on hunger.
What comes into your
What
pocket?
comes into your pocket, then
Yeah.
it changes the game.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's actually very interesting take. Now we're a youth-led organization,
Mhm.
obviously, and whenever we are observing elections, something that we like to consider is what is the percentage of youth coming out? Because I mean, Africa has a lot more percentage of young people in its demography than the US, but the US has a large population, and of course, the youth also make up a significant part of that. From your observation, do you think young people were invested and interested in this in this
Of the U.S.
ongoing?
election.
It's actually ongoing,
Well, I mean, it's. Yeah, I think by the time we are done with this interview, you might see that they are going.
right?
So the U.S. election, interestingly, first of all, I would say yes. I mean, obviously, being youth-led, it's youth is the future of any nation, right? Because they have strengths, to drive a lot of things. Every nation is built by its youth and the audacity that they hold to their things and change things. And
Yeah.
the future is shaped by new ideology on say, okay, this is how we meant things, but this is how we want things to be. And it's only the youth that will typically do that. Now, the US election has showed us very huge numbers in terms of youth involvement. The vice president elect, JD Vance, is a youth.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, people might not call him a youth, but he's 40 years old. I mean, that's young enough, right? You typically find out that you have a lot of young college voters active in this election because there were a lot of voters turnouts, especially during the early voting system that the
Yes.
American government has.
Yes.
There were a lot of voter turnout. A lot of young college students actually came out and voted. If you check social media numbers, you will see that a lot of conversations began happening in schools. You could see that they were more politically involved. Even when you see what was going on, when they were talking about what was going on in Israel and Palestine, you see schools were shutting down. So you had a lot of young people showing their voices that, oh, I don't agree with what's happening within Israel. I don't agree that the government should support this. Even with the insurrection that happened at the capital, it was young people, right? Even if that was bad, but it was young people. So young people are actually very actively involved with what's going on currently in the elections. But I think we just have to make them more informed because like what happened in the capital was very disheartening, right?
That's true.
Because a lot of them were just ill-informed young people, So I think the key thing is I mean, platforms like this, like what you guys have, should focus more around educating the youth
Yes.
because that energy that the youth has to be directed in the right direction, or else you will just find out that we do not even have very good youth involvement. Everyone is just trying to be involved because of passion or because of boredom, but it should be with a new mindset of understanding what it takes to be involved in politics. So the U.S. election actually was really impressive in terms of youths canvassing for votes for people, and even let's not even talk about the fact that a large percentage of the media engagement was done across social media, right?
That's
Because
true.
the mainstream media lost its hold in this election. You could see President Trump was going around from podcast to podcast just to ensure that he got his message out there. The one he did with Joe Rogan, it was phenomenal.
Yeah.
So you could see all of that. X was used. Everything was used to drive voter engagement and voter engagement
Turnout.
and voter turnout and voter involvement. So that was something that I saw, in this election, and I feel even if Nigeria, we too, decide to take that cue, we'll really see a lot done.
Okay, I mean, you spoke about the early voting, which it's been going on in the U.S. like that. How do you think that can be implemented here in our context in Nigeria? I know that happens in Ghana, it happens in South Africa as well. But how can we implement it for our own unique Nigerian context?
I really think so. Before implementing something, I think the question should be whether we need it.
Right.
Whether
I think we do.
yeah, I mean, because we found out that most of the time a single day for election has never really delivered election. We often find that there's an over
Spill into the
spilling to the next day and to
yes.
the next day. So I think historically we've seen that a single day is actually not possible for election. However, I think we must also make it a bit more concise because of the issues around rigging and the issues that we deal with in this country.
Yeah.
Someone, before I got into this, someone told me that, has anybody sent talks? I said, Interestingly, I know the person was trying to joke, but
Yes,
I was talking about the US election, but that's typically not things that you see over there.
that's true.
Those are things that you see around here. So it's because of the sensitivity of how elections are around here that people are trying to keep it within a closed period.
Mm.
So maybe we might need to extend it to like 2 days, or might need to extend to like 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
And also another reason they do those early voting is so that people can actually, I mean, they even do mail-in votes.
Yes.
You could vote through mail. I mean, do you really trust if they say you should vote through mail? You know, so it's a very, very because they want to encourage participation.
Yes.
That's why they make that window.
All
Because if you
those
are working in
things.
somewhere like America, most likely your shifts, everything,
There's a
you have a
lot.
lot of work, so you might as well just give people more time to vote. You know, so it's as a result of trying to reduce voter apathy. That's why they are doing those systems, right? And I think maybe we might just need to adapt our own to our systems, or just trying to say, okay, we want to do early voting. No, even some people are even pushing for diaspora voting. How can people in Nigeria from diaspora vote? You know, which is an interesting one.
Yes.
But for me, I'm like, see, let even the vote in Nigeria count first.
We
As
have so
much
many
as
issues in our
possible.
hands to
Right,
manage.
to manage. So do we want to create this new window that will cause room for distrust in the system? You know, let's make it more technology driven. Let's give more time. Let's say from one day, let's make it a 2-day exercise or a 3-day exercise, maybe from a Friday, Saturday, and a Sunday. Just take everything like that. And you know, okay, this weekend is for voting. Everybody stay in your house. You know, that kind of a thing. I think that might be helpful.
Yes.
You know, but to say we'll start doing as long as the US.
No, you don't. You don't think so. Well, I mean, I agree with you. I think we can make our system, more flexible.
Yeah, let's adapt it to
Yes,
our reality.
to our reality. We can make our system just more flexible for people who may not be able to go out to vote on the day. And then the early voting, I feel, can come in for INEC officials, security officials who are very busy on election day and unable to cast their vote. Because from the general election, the last year general election, we saw about 1 million, INEC officials unable to vote, volunteers, electoral officials generally, not just INEC officials, pardon me, unable to vote on the election day because they were doing a lot of them. That's just a number that was accounted for. Imagine other people who just are not able to vote
Was
because
there a number to that?
Sorry?
Was there like a number of people to that? Like
Yeah, we saw about 1 million.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
But there are actually a lot more people.
Wow.
Yes, than that.
I mean, that's a substantial amount.
It is really actually.
Because I mean, if you look at even the difference between the winner and the second place, I think it was just about 1.5 million or 2 million.
Yeah. So it was actually very, 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 very significant. So looking at the electoral process, the U.S., how it's been going on from yesterday to today, even a few days preceding the election day. What are some learnings that you feel we can, take on for our own African or Nigerian context outside the early voting? What are some other things that you feel, make sense for us to adapt for our context here?
I mean, I would say first things first is I think we need to also find a way to simplify the process of voting for people. But I think that would have to be an entire 360 approach in terms of ensuring we have the right data of people, verification, and the rest. So I think we tried it in the last election, but I think we need to do better so that we can use more of technology. That's why you said the votes were coming in even faster than we expected.
Yeah.
Right? Because last time they had the issue of counting and they sorted it out. So I hope we don't have the same issue that we had of network or whatever that was quoted in the last election.
Yes.
In this particular election. Another thing that I would like us to see is the place of leveraging, in terms of our approach, leveraging new media, in terms of getting more people to be aware of candidates, ensuring that candidates are more involved in the process and engaging with people so that people can feel them, people can get to ask them questions. You had Donald Trump at McDonald's, you had Kamala Harris too doing likewise. So there are lots of strategies that we saw in this election that we can learn from. Another thing also is the fact that as much as the politics got very intense, I think unfortunately this is when we had the assassination attempt of this. So I think that's something that was a bit alarming in this election. Because I mean, you have never really heard of that before, whereby someone is running for the presidential office and then he gets shot not just once but twice. That's really, really disheartening. So I think we shouldn't learn that one. I think
Absolutely.
we should stay here. But
Yeah.
I think those are some things that I've observed about the U.S. election. But then I think also we need to get as much people involved, both private sector, both private sector, development sector. We need to get more of them involved in the process of electioneering, because the process of electioneering is not a government's job only.
Yes.
We need more people involved, more people going out there, more people sponsoring candidates, and more people sponsoring candidates' communication work, so that more people are educated about the candidate and about the work of elections.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. We need more involvement, because right now it seems like the work around the election is just for government and civil society organizations.
Yes.
And I mean, some people argue that it's the same thing that's happening over and over again. So what's the need of going out to be involved in the process? But then I do not think that is true. I think the numbers actually really matter. We need to have more people who are interested and invested in the process, not just the government, not just civil society organizations, not just particular people who have certain stakes or interests. So what do you think a Trump administration will be like for Nigeria?
So Trump really didn't speak so much about Africa was not really on the table in this election.
Yeah, that's true.
Africa was not on the table. I think the African agenda still remain the same. Capture as many people to be our allies, because we know that Africa is the next promise. Ensure that we get as many of our businesses to have businesses here and own some stakes in the country. Support the countries to become the best version of themselves, give them loans. I think those things will still remain. The only place where I see issues around migration. People that are trying to run there, people that are trying to go there illegally.
Yes.
I think that's where we'll see most of the issues. But in the terms of saying that Trump will necessarily shake things up and will affect Nigeria or affect Africa in a way that is bad, I don't think he really cares so much, because right now his focus is on reconciling America, healing America, and causing America to become a united front, right? And to become like the leader of the world that it once was. That's his typical definition of it. But then again, what that would mean in terms of aid, in terms of there will be programs that will be shut down.
Yes.
That's the truth. So there will be programs that will most likely be shut down that it feels like is a waste of taxpayers' money. So we need to brace up to ensure that we understand to what extent he can go. Because one thing I also know about the American system is that being the American president does not just mean you just say this and everything will be done, or you just shout everybody will behave themselves. The American president, there are lots of checks, and balances, And something I'm very excited about is to see how he would handle the war in Ukraine, to see how he would also handle China.
Yeah.
To see how you handle Israel. Because that's something very sensitive. He said he's going to deal with the Ukraine war even as president-elect, before even his inauguration. So it's something I'm excited to see how he will go about doing that, because if he's able to sort it out, I think it will now say, okay.
Yes, you know what you're doing. You actually have different, strategies from other people. Yeah, well, I was actually looking at that from the point of policies that he's rolling out and how that impacts us as a country, both our economy and our people.
Yeah, I mean, because he's already looking to drill, and he said drill, baby, drill. It keeps saying it, drill, baby, drill. That would mean that the percentage of oil that will be bought from us in Africa, in Nigeria, for example, which is one of they're one of our major buyers, right, is going to go down.
Yeah.
Because they will typically not even, or if they want to just keep it there for trade incentives' sake, fine. But most likely it's going to go down, because then again, they have as much oil as they want. They have as much oil reserves as they want. So I think they are good in that regard. So it's good. You're going to see less of those kind of initiatives from him, to try and see how he can make America better, rather than trying to just enrich other nations.
Yes, instead of just giving. And America is going to focus on making themselves better.
It's more like when they say it this way, that I take care of me so that I can better take care of you.
Yes, that's true. Because they say you have to sit comfortably before you're able to lap somebody, right?
Exactly.
So, okay. So In Nigeria, we've seen a trend, right? Every election ends in the court. And I don't. That's not the democracy that we want to see. It's not like we have taken the powers away from the people and then put it in the hands of the
Courts, yeah.
judiciary, right? Do you think the U.S. election is going to go that route? Because we are seeing a winner, and we know that it's hard for the other, whoever it was going to be, it was going to be hard for the next person. Do you think it's going to go through that route?
So, no, most likely not. Kamala won't necessarily. I don't see Kamala as someone that will push to the courts like the way Trump can, right? But you see, going to the courts is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
It's actually a proof of democracy because then again, that means that you have the right to contest what you think when you think you were not treated fairly enough. However, it's in the American election, they typically pride themselves in the fact that they have a very, very integrity-based electioneering system. So what that means is that they would actually want a scenario whereby somebody does not even need to go to courts, But I don't see I say Hillary Harris going to court to go and try and prove
Contest
anything
the
because I
election.
think the numbers are looking quite clear, But I think for us in Nigeria, we typically do it because let's not forget that people still lose court cases, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I don't think it's taking away from the people. I actually think it's taking it on behalf of the people.
Well, I mean that's a conversation for another day because I don't really agree with that.
Okay, tell me
Right?
more.
I don't think we should move elections from the people to the court because
No. So it's not moving
No,
elections from the people to the courts.
yeah, I mean it's not moving, but why can't the people believe or understand that the vote of the voters of the electorate of the young people of the citizens of the country actually counted? Day in, election out, it ends in the court. Why does it have? Why is that the trend?
So the reason is because the process has not been shown to be as transparent and unbiased as possible. So if you look at a system and you don't feel you were well treated, it's democracy for you to go and search and say, I want to get justice on this matter.
But then,
So, and what they typically happens in the courts is that they go through the evidence. The court does not come and say, oh, this person is the person that won. They go through the evidence of the votes that were submitted. They check every single vote that was reported and say, okay, this was valid and this was not valid.
but has the judiciary actually been transparent in its dealings, in
No,
this
so
past?
you see, that's a different
Yes.
conversation. Transparency now becomes a conversation around the courts, but doesn't necessarily mean that going to courts
Is the problem?
is a problem. So the problem, yes, the judiciary has not been transparent in Nigeria, and I think they could be a bit more accountable to show people that okay, we're actually transparent people.
Anyways, let's stay on the U.S. Let's stay on the U.S. I mean, I've really had great conversations with you, Elijah.
Likewise.
Thank you so much for coming. And just finally, we are seeing results. We've seen results coming from the Senate and the House of Reps as well.
Yes.
And it's like America is now a full, Republican state. What do you think about that?
So America is built on left wing and right wing.
Yeah.
You kind of need the left wing and right wing balance to for it to sail nicely, and it's always good when you have a Republican president and a Democratic dominated house, and then. But I mean, so far from what we've seen, we are most likely leaning towards a Republican president. We already have a Republican Senate.
Yes.
We are looking at whether we'll have a Republican house, right? Now, what that would mean most likely is that there will most likely be like a straight rubber stamp, which is not really good for any democracy. You kind of want a balance.
That's true.
But if there's anything I also know about America, is that even the Republican Party, they are kind of not necessarily all in alignment with Trump. So he might see some pushbacks. However, how far back? So I don't think it's actually a good thing. But let's see it play out.
Let's see it play out, right?
I mean, because that automatically means that Trump does not stand the risk of an impeachment, right? Because typically, unless you have offended your party,
that's true.
You typically don't stand the risk of an impeachment, right? And then what would then happen after that is also let's not forget that someone like J.D. Vance now is the person whose everybody's attention is on right now, because he has a high chance of running to become president next. Donald Trump is going to be done in 4 years. the way he positions himself, the way he positions himself in these 4 years can determine his next political career of becoming president of America. So it's actually a very, very interesting time to observe these things. But I agree with you in terms of having an entire
Every arm.
every arm Republican is not actually a good thing,
Yeah.
because you actually have a Republican also dominant Supreme Court.
That's true.
So which is a bit scary,
Yeah.
right? So
Yes.
you kind of want a balance, you know. But I mean, they are also still there, and I think these politicians know how to lobby themselves.
Yeah. Yes,
challenges.
I agree. I agree. Thank you so much,
Thank you
Mr.
very much.
Elijah Affi. You've shared incredible insight with us, giving us beautiful analysis,
Thank you.
made us understand, you know, a lot of things around the election, and even seeing how we can implement it or how it relates to our own Nigerian and African context. And we are very grateful that you
Thank
took
you
out
very
the time
much.
to come to our
Thanks for
studio.
inviting me.
Thank you so much. We are still observing the U.S. elections. It is almost over, but it's not over yet. Stay tuned on Ready to Lead Africa.